Hi everyone, welcome back to Jolie Knots Crochet. I'm Crystal and today we are going to be making this bohemian swimsuit cover-up. The yarn that we're going to be using today, we're going to be using a mixture of two. I'm going to be doing them double-stranded with the size 5mm hook. This is a fine 2-weight yarn and this is a fine 1-weight yarn. So it's going to be approximately a 3-weight. The one that we're going to be making today is going to be a child size, approximately a small medium. The way that we're going to be sizing this is that you are going to take the chest size of whatever size you're making, cut that in half, and add 5 inches. So for example, if you have a 30-inch bust for a child, we're going to cut that in half to 15, and then we're going to add 5 inches. So we're going to make our piece 20 inches wide. Now, if you have, say for example, for an adult, a 40-inch bust, you're going to cut that in half to 20, adding 5 inches, and you're going to make yours 25 inches wide. So getting started on this, we're going to take both of our yarn ends, make a slip knot, and I'm not a huge fan of starting chains, so since this is a swimsuit cover-up, in lieu of our starting chain, what we're going to do is we're going to chain 3, double crochet into that first chain, just like that, chain 3, turn your work, double crochet into the space that you had just made, chain 3, turn your work, double crochet into the last space made. We're always going to be working in between the double crochet and the chain 3 that we made from the previous row. So this one right here, I'm just going to show you a sample size so that way you can find out how large you need to make yours, or how wide you need to make yours. So we're going to be making a swatch here, and I'll show you the pattern, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how to, this is going to be the back panel, so I'm going to show you how to get started on the front panel. So with your chain spaces, your large chain spaces here, make sure that when you are measuring your piece, you're ending with an odd number. So you're going to need an odd number of these. So right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, double crochet into that same space. That's going to make 7. And I'm going to go ahead and go 9. This is what your piece is going to look like. This is going to be your beginning row. Now, remember I said to make sure that you end on an odd number. And to start your first row, you're going to chain 2, and you're going to put 2 double crochets into that first space. And you're going to repeat that all the way to the end. We're putting 2 double crochets into each space. When you reach the end, you're adding 2 double crochets just like regular into that space, but we want an odd number of stitches as well. So we're going to add 1 more double crochet into that starting chain where we put our first double crochet. So now you finished your first row, and again, you're going to have an odd number of stitches. For round 2, we're going to chain 3. We're going to double crochet into that second stitch. Our chain 3 is going to count as a stitch. And then we're going to double crochet again into that third stitch. Chain 1, skip 1, double crochet into the next. This is your repeat for the row. Chain 1, skip 1, double crochet into the next double crochet, all the way to the end. Okay, so now that we've reached the end, we've put 1 double crochet here and we have 2 stitches left. So at the start, this is our fillet row. At the beginning and at the end of every fillet row, we're going to have 3 double crochets. Now remember, this chain 2 did not count as a stitch, so we're going to have 1 here, and now we've got 2 more double crochets to complete our row. All right, so to start row 3, we're chaining 3, turning our work, and what we're gonna do, we're skipping this first stitch because this is counting as our double crochet. Into our next stitch, which is our middle double crochet, we're gonna put a puff stitch. So what we're gonna do is yarn over, insert our hook into the stitch, and pull up a loop. We're doing that 3 times, yarning over, pulling up a loop, yarning over, pulling up a loop. And now we should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through all but the last loop. And now you should have 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through those 2, chain 1, and we're going to put another, we're skipping the double crochet and putting a puff stitch into the next one. Yarning over, pulling through all loops but the last one, closing out with the chain and adding a chain for space. And we're going to do that until we get to the second to last stitch. Okay, so we've just put our last puff stitch into the last space. We're going to chain 1, and the last puff stitch of the row is going to be into that center double crochet, just like it was over here at the beginning. Pulling through all loops except the last one. Then pulling through the last 2. We're not chaining 1 for space. So straight from this puff stitch, we're going to put a double crochet into the top of the chain 3 space. This is what your first 3 rows are going to look like. Your next row is going to be a fillet row, and it's going to be the exact same as row 2. So it's really just a repeat of row 2, only we're working into the puff stitches this time. So let's go ahead and do that. We're chaining 3. Remember, we have 3 double crochets at the beginning and 3 double crochets at the end of every fillet row. So 3 chains counts as your first. Your second double crochet is going into the top of the puff stitch. Your third one is going in that chain space. Chain 1, double crochet into the next space between your puff stitches. Chain 1, double crochet into the next space between your puff stitches. chain one, and we're doing that to the end until you get to your last 3 stitches, and that's when we're putting our 3 double crochets. So here's 1, second double crochet is on top of your puff stitch, and your third double crochet is at the top of your chain 3. This is going to complete your 4th row. Let's getting started on row 4. We're going to chain 6. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now this row is going to be a series of really long X stitches. So you're going to want to make sure that you hold your yarn on your hook pretty taut. So once you chain your 6, what we're going to do is put a double treble into the next stitch. That's yarning over 3 times, going into that next stitch, pulling up a loop, and then yarning over, going through 2, 2, 2, 2, all the way to the end to complete your stitch. Now we're going to be doing a series of X stitches, really long X stitches. So we're going to yarn over 4 times. You're going to want to make sure to bring all of your loops together. Don't make them too tight, but you want them to not move. So you want to move it down with your stitches. We're going to be working into our double crochets for this row. So the first unworked double crochet is right here. That's what we're going to work into, and we're essentially going to create a double crochet 2 together. So yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and this is a partial double crochet. So now what we're going to do is leaving 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on our hook. We're going to yarn over, go into the top of the next double crochet. So we're skipping that chain space, pulling up, yarning over, pulling through 2. And so now we've got a 2 double crochet together, not totally complete. We just have that last step to yarn over and pull through 3. You should still have 4 loops on your hook, double crochet 2 together, and now what you're going to do is essentially finish out a treble crochet. So 1, 2, 3 times you're yarning over and pulling through 2. That's to complete your treble. Now we're going to chain 1, and what we're going to do is we're sticking a double crochet. We're working into this X stitch, and we're working our double crochet into these 2 loops. You see where the 3 come together through here? That's from your double crochet 2 together. You're going to find the next 2 loops, yarn over, go underneath those 2 loops. Mine looks like 4 because I'm using 2 strands. Yarn over, pull up a loop, and now we're going to finish our double crochet. Just like that. That's what your X stitch is going to look like. Okay? So now we're going to do it again. We're going to put a chain 1 space in between. So chain 1, yarn over 4 times. The next double crochet, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. Remember to keep these all together. Yarn over, finishing your double crochet 2 together. We're going into the next double crochet, pulling up a loop, going through 2, and now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're yarning over and we're pulling through 3 loops. Now you should have 4 loops on your hook. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you've got a 2 double crochet together down here. Now we are completing a treble crochet. So yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, 3 times. Chain 1, And now we're putting our double crochet, remember, underneath these 2 loops right above your 3 coming together from the double crochet 2 together. Just like that. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And that is what your X stitches will look like. Okay? Now, again, I'll show you one more time. Chain 1, yarn over 4 times, go into the next double crochet unworked. We're creating a double crochet 2 together from this stitch and the next double crochet. And then we're going to complete our treble. Chain 1, double crochet underneath those 2 loops. There we go. Chain 1. And now we've got one more for this side. That brings us to the end. So our next one's going to be in these 2 stitches. So let's go. So now that we're at the end of our row, we've got 2 stitches left, and we're going to put 2 double trebles. So 1 double treble in the next double crochet and 1 double treble in the top of the chain 3 space. Do not chain 1 after your last X stitch like we did here. We're going straight into our double trebles. So yarning over 3 times. One double treble, and into the top of your 3rd chain, your 2nd double treble. Okay, so that's going to complete your row 5. Row 6, 7, and 8 are repeats of 2, 3, and 4. Let me show you 6 because we're working now into our X stitches and not into our solid row. 1, 2, 3, we're chaining 3, turning our work. And if you remember, all of our fillet rows are starting with 3 double crochets. So double crochet into the next stitch, 1 more double crochet into the next, which is the top of the first part of your X stitch. We're going to chain 1, double crochet into the top of the next part of your X, chain 1, and that's what you're going to do all the way across. Chain 1, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1, now that we are at the end and we've added our double crochet with 2 stitches left, we are not chaining 1, we're putting a double crochet into each stitch. The top of your double treble and the top of your chain 6. So now we've got 6 rows. You're going to go ahead and repeat the puff row. You're going to repeat another solid row, and then I'm going to come back and we're going to go over this row again together because our X's are actually going to be a little bit staggered. So I'm going to show you how to stagger those. Go ahead and complete your puff and your fillet, and I will meet you right back. Okay, so now that we've gotten to the end of your next fillet row, you should have your X's, fillet, puff, fillet. Now, the next row we're going to do is an X row, but it's going to be slightly different because we're wanting to stagger our crosses. So here, we're going to have a cross going this way between these 2. So let me show you how we're going to do that. We're going to chain 5. yarn over. We're going to make our long X stitch, but we're going to start here in the first stitch. So yarning over 4 times. The first part of our 2 double crochet together goes here. The next part, we're skipping 1 stitch. We're going into the top of the 3rd double crochet in that row. And we complete our 2 double crochet together, just like so. Now we're going to complete our treble that's left on the hook. This one is not counting as a stitch. So we're having an X start right here way on the side, where over here we had 2 double trebles and then had 1, 2, 3, 4 on the inside. Okay, so let's go ahead and finish our X stitch. We're chaining 1. And we are going underneath the 2 loops just above where your 2 double crochet togethers are. Let me show you again. Yarn over, find where your 3 come together from your 2 double crochet together, and take those 2 loops right above that. Just like so. Yarn over, pull up a loop, finish out your double crochet. And that is going to be your first X stitch of this row. Okay, working into the first double crochet of the row, skipping 1, working into that next one, and now we're going to make our next X stitch. So we're going to chain 1, yarn over 4 times, working into our next unworked double crochet, yarn over, the next unworked double crochet, completing our double crochet 2 together, and then completing the remainder of a treble. Chain 1 and finding our 2 loops right above your double crochet 2 together. And we're putting a double crochet there. Chain 1. Again. Okay, so now if you look, you'll see that our cross stitches are now staggered. Kind of hard to tell actually. But you've got one way on this side. This one's falling in between there. Then between these 2, that one is in between. So again, they're being staggered. So your fillet, puff, fillet are always going to be the same, but then we're alternating between the 2 rows of X stitches. Let's go ahead and finish the row. Okay, so now that we are at the end of the X stitch row, your second X stitch row, we are going to yarn over 4 times, and we're working into the last 3 stitches. The 3rd double crochet from the end is going to get a partial double crochet, yarning over, finishing our 2 double crochet together from the top of the 3rd stitch, yarning over, pulling through 3 loops, and remember to make sure that you have 4 loops left on your hook. Yarn over and take off 2 at a time. Chain 1. Now this stitch is going to be a double crochet and a double treble together. So let me show you how we're going to do that. We're yarning over, we're going to start our double crochet out. And before we finish that double crochet, we're going to yarn over 3 times, going into the last stitch worked, which is the top of your double crochet 3, or I'm sorry, your chain 3. And we are going to continue taking off 2 loops at a time until we've got 3 loops left on our hook. Yarn over and pull through all 3. And that's how you're going to finish your next round. Okay, so here's how we're going to measure. This is our swatch piece. This is going to make our gauge, or so we can find our gauge. If you're using a 5mm hook and a 3-weight yarn, it's going to be a little bit easier for you because yours is going to be pretty much the same as mine. Okay, so for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 spaces to begin with is going to be about 4.5 inches. Now our repeat, if you remember, is going to start from our second row all the way to the top of your second X row. So your repeats are row 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 are repeats of 2, 3, and 4. And row 9 is similar to your X stitch, only you're gonna have 1 extra X stitch because you're starting farther out on the end. You're gonna repeat this until your piece and this part measures a few inches or below where your bottom, you know, where your butt ends and your thighs start, the back of your thighs. So how we're going to complete our piece, this is the one that I'm making that is for a size small, medium in child. Okay, so now that we've gotten the width and the length that we want, this one is measuring approximately 16, about 15.5 inches, but I've got it to be 24 inches long. So what we're gonna do now is we are gonna find the middle, come in from your sides and find the middle. And remember on the bottom how we started with an odd number? We want to make sure that it's going to be an odd number of stitches on each side. Okay, so you're going to take your middle piece. We're going to find our middle. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27 windows. Our middle is going to be the 14th one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. This is going to be our middle window. Let's go ahead and pop a stitch marker there. So here we are at our center. And what we're going to do is we're going to take away these 3 center boxes. This will be the last stitch that we work into on either side for a child size. This is going to be the back of your neck. So for a child, I'm going to allow it to just kind of have a smaller opening. Now for an adult, you probably want to leave 5, maybe even 7, depending on your size, unworked. But remember, it's always going to be an odd number. You're going to leave an odd number unworked. So leaving my stitch marker there, the way that I'm going to start my front panels is the first row is going to be a puff stitch row and then a chain stitch row. So we're going to go ahead and do our puff stitch row by chaining 3, turning, puff stitching into the second stitch, pulling through all but the last. Now that we've gotten to the end of our puff stitch row, remember we're leaving 3 unworked. So this is our center. We're going to leave that last or that next one unworked. And right after our puff stitch, we're going to pop a double crochet right into that last stitch. Now we're going to work back this way. And what we're going to do is we're going to work a fillet row. So we're chaining 3, turning our work, working a double crochet into the first stitch, a double crochet into the next. We're leaving it the same as before as far as our filet rows, always having 3 at the beginning and 3 at the end. Chaining 1, double crochets between our puff stitches. Okay, so now we are at the end and we're putting our 3 double crochets into the last stitch, which is our last chain space, our last puff, and the top of our 3rd double crochet. So now your work should look like this. This is essentially creating our shoulder piece. So we're going to do this one more time, repeating your puff row and repeating your filet row. Go ahead and do that and meet me right back here. So now that we've got 3 rows of puff stitches ending in a row of filet, we're going to continue working our X stitches. So go ahead and continue your original repeat, starting from your X stitch row and then continuing on with your puff stitch, filet, puff, filet, X, and then continuing on until you reach the same amount of repeats on the front as you have on the back. Okay, so now that we've reached the end of one side of our panel, the way that we are going to finish that off is to make sure that you're ending first on a filet row, and then we're going to go ahead and put double crochets in every stitch. So chain 3, double crochet in the next stitch, double crochet in the next, double crochet in the chain space, putting those double crochets all the way across. All right, so now that you've got your double crochets all the way across, you're going to chain 1, and we're going to put a single crochet into that first stitch, chain 2. We're going to try to make our last row here a little bit tight. So, I mean, you don't have to change hook sizes or anything, just keep your tension a little bit tighter. Go ahead and skip 2 stitches, put a single crochet in between the 3rd and 4th double crochet, chain 2, skip 2, single crochet in between. So you should have a single crochet in between every 2 stitches with a chain 2. Now that we're at the end, we should have 2 stitches left. We're going to chain 2 and we're going to go ahead and put a single crochet into that last stitch. Now what we've done here is created these chain 2 spaces to put our tassels in. Those are the spaces we're going to put our tassels in. Okay, so now that we've got that done, what we're going to do is we're going to find the other side of our project. Find where our stitch marker is, and we were coming along this way in this row, and that's where we're going to begin. So we're going to begin with a double crochet in this stitch right here. And then we're going to puff stitch. We're going to do the same exact thing here. We're going to make the bottom exactly the same, and I'm going to show you how to do the tassels. All right, so I find the easiest way to make my tassels is to find a book or notebook or something approximately the length of the tassel that I want to make. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hold my yarn on one end and I'm just gonna wrap around the book. Around and around and around. I'm gonna cut on that side and then I'm going to cut along the rest of them. Here are the tassels that we've made. How we're going to attach those is we're going to take the back end and the front end and we're going to add tassels. This is the back, so we're going to add, oops, this is the back. We're going to add tassels into each of these spaces. And then along the front panels, we have created those chain 2 spaces. And that's where we're going to add the tassels in the front. So doing that, I'm going to take 3 sets, 3 colors, 3 solids. I'm going to find the middle. Now, when you're working with tassels, you're always going to be working into the back. Let me show you how you can tell the front and the back. The front's going to be this nice uniform side, along with the same uniform side on your X stitches. So you're going to take your hook, you're going to put it through the back of that chain 2 space, grab your yarn, pull it through, and then pull it through again. And you've got your first tassel. Taking our yarn, folding it in half. It's hard for me to get all of my tassels the right size, so I'm just going to snip it at the end and make sure that they're all even. I'm going to take my hook, put it through the back of that chain 2 space, grab my yarn, pull it through, and pull it through again. And now we've got our 2 tassels. So go ahead and finish your tassels all the way on the front panels and along the back panel. And we will then make a chain approximately long enough to wrap around you twice. That way you have a nice loose tie if you would like, and you have enough space to actually tie it.